Welcome to the Future of Work podcast, where we explore what's next in work, workplace, and the human experience. You're listening to a Future of Work Expert Insights, a special format where we bring together the most thought-provoking insights from our top guests around a single topic shaping the future of work. In this episode, we explore what modern leadership really looks like, from rethinking productivity and burnout to empowering teams and designing cultures that thrive on autonomy and meaning. Leadership today isn't just about titles, it's about trust, purpose, and the ability to adapt when everything around us is changing. We've curated conversations with three of the sharpest minds in the industry. We've brought together three voices shaping that conversation: Dr. Dale Whelehan, Chris McAlister, and Drew Jones. Each offering unique insights into leadership, culture, and the evolving mindsets reshaping how we lead, grow, and build resilient teams in the future of work. Let's begin. As we rethink what it means to lead in a world that never stops moving, there's one challenge every organization faces: how to sustain performance without burning people out. Our first guest is Dr. Dale Whelehan of 4-Day Week Global. He shares why shorter weeks aren't just about time off, they're about redesigning work around human energy, motivation, and connection. After years of hyperconnectivity and blurred boundaries between home and work, many people feel more burned out than ever. How can rethinking time, through models like the 4-Day Week, help leaders design organizations that actually protect well-being and performance?
What really emerged from the pandemic was a lot of positive things. People kind of a collective wake up for many people that actually I've been living in sort of this change of the rhythm approach to work, and now I have a bit more autonomy and flexibility, and I know how to look after myself a bit better. But also we saw a much more difficult ability to detach from work that didn't exist pre-pandemic. So we now have people working from their sitting rooms, which is also their office and also their relaxing space. And so dedication, and I suppose that engagement towards work is why I think we now have an issue of burnout, not just within the caring professions, but also within the general workforce. And that is not going to go away, unfortunately, because we now live in a world where everything is hyper connected. I think the idea of work-life balance is outdated. We need a new way of thinking about it, because when does work start and when does it end? And that will differ from me as it does to you and what you determine work to be. And that also feeds into social media sites that we engage in, where we're looking at a lot of, global issues happening around the world, which is also feeding into global levels of stress and impacting on economies, and all of those sort of things are contributing to reported levels of burnout within our workforce. Your second question around why a 4-day week as opposed to why would a 4-day week do anything about that? It's not so much, I think, the reduction in working hours alone that is going to be the silver bullet for solving some of these issues, but it is the catalyst to evoke change within organizations to redesign work in a way that's much more congruent with human psychology and human physiology. And that's where we look at things like what it is that motivate people within work in the first place. And similar to how we have basic physiological needs, like the need to eat, to sleep, to have shelter, research has shown we have three fundamental psychological needs for happiness and health as well. And they're the need to feel competent in what we do, the need to feel autonomous in what we do, and the need to feel connected to people that matter to us most. And what I find in 4-day week trials is that you can actually redesign work through to accessing those three needs. So you're getting both the employee, you're gifting the employee something like additional time off, but you're also guaranteeing to the employer that productivity of the workforce is not going to diminish as a result of this as well. So you put that framework to play within organizations and ask people, well, what can we reduce? What inefficiencies can we reduce within workplaces by 20% in order to guarantee the same level of output, but also make sure we can work less time?
Dale shows how leadership begins with creating conditions for people to thrive, not just work harder. If Dale challenges how we work, Chris McAlister challenges how we lead. Because leadership, he says, isn't about control or motivation, it's about meaning. Our next guest, Chris McAlister, founder of SiteShift, breaks down how true leaders grow other leaders, shifting from managing people to managing agreements. Leadership today often feels like constant managing and motivating. But what if true leadership isn't about control at all? How can leaders move from managing people to cultivating meaning and ownership within their teams?
What a leader really is. You think about leadership, there's so many definitions for it. At the core, for us, we're thinking about it in terms like this. A leader is defined by what they leave. How am I leaving this atmosphere, this space, this job, this role, this responsibility? The height of leadership is to think beyond yourself. And we have a specific definition in the way that we define that. A leader is someone who develops other leaders. And we have 3 characteristics underneath that to make it really tight, make it really clear for how to define it. But, that's the core and the essence of it. It's too easy to think about leadership in terms of the energy you're applying to the moment. And that's a starting point, but it's a terrible ending point. A leader has to think about, how does this end? How do I finish this? Whether it's a small moment, a big moment, a lifetime career, and everything in between. A leader learns how to make meaning for themselves and help others do the same. So we think about leadership in terms of, I've got to motivate you. I've got to provide extrinsic motivation. That's again a great starting point, but a terrible ending point, because a leader thinks about, what happens when I'm not around? What happens when I'm not there? So how does the team flourish? How does the culture go on to be all it can be? Few leaders have ever tasted an environment where the team is initiating on their own in better ways than that leader could. And we hear it all the time, how rare that is. And so we're looking for someone who knows how to learn to make their own meaning, produce their own motivation, and teach others to do the same. That's one characteristic. But this is the starting point, because if I've got to keep you motivated, well, then I'm not leading you. And here's a great example. I end up managing you and nagging you. And when we think about the future of work, I like asking leaders this question. How many of you like managing people? And I'll ask it to a large room of people. Raise your hands. Hands don't go up. Yeah, no, people don't like to manage people because managing people is a lot like nagging your teenager to clean their bedroom. When are you going to clean your room? You can't leave those dishes on the nightstand. This is a mess. What are you going to do? And what ends up happening in management is we have to try to provide this extrinsic motivation. We're going to try to force something. We're going to try to get them to behave. And at the end of the day, I understand at different levels of the organization, you have different ways you interact with people. We cannot be in the place that we're exhausting ourselves that way. We have to, what we say is, lead people and manage agreements. All systems, all incentives, all cultural values need to be built with this intentionality of, we are raising leaders. And yeah, they may stay in the organization and go up 5 levels, right? They may launch out and start their own company or go to that other company. There is a sense that we can't be these controlling, insecure leaders that I'll love them if they stay and hate them if they leave, but we are doing what we're doing with the end in mind. And the reality is, once you start getting these lower level agreements in place, then you get to start putting these higher structures where it's not carrot and stick, it is learning to find your own intrinsic motivation.
Chris reminds us that lasting leadership is about building independence, not dependence. And if leadership starts with trust and meaning, it has to live somewhere real. Our next guest, Drew Jones, anthropologist and author of the Open Culture Handbook, explains how culture isn't engineered, it's cultivated. Leaders can't force it, but they can create the conditions where it grows naturally. Many organizations still try to engineer culture from the top down, but authentic culture rarely works that way. How can modern leaders create the trust, freedom, and conditions for culture to grow naturally and drive innovation?
The onus falls on employees to change their behavior. And statistics show that rarely works. Those processes go on for 4 or 5 months. People resist it. management gets frustrated, they abandon it, and it's like, well, what culture program? That was last quarter, right? And then on and on and on. And the futility just continues. What companies can do is create material conditions where culture can develop and grow organically, because this is what humans do. You put people together in groups and they bind themselves through culture. So you can't engineer it the way businesses seem to want to do, but you can create conditions for it to thrive. And so that's the subtitle of the book is, 5 questions to drive engagement, innovation. And that's really what I'm talking about. One is having a very clearly defined strategy that's communicated ideally in some form of storytelling manner that has a compelling purpose that gives people a sense of connection to the cause. That's one. 2 is what people are working on. This is where I say that innovation is as much of an HR issue as it is a business growth issue, because when an employee comes in to work, if they're cognitively stimulated and challenged to create some new, either a process or a hack or a concept for a business or a service or whatever, that's a fundamentally different kind of work than coming in to work and simply slashing costs all day or scaling an existing business. So this is why companies, W.L. Gore, Hair Electronics, others, Google famously, provide some amount of the work week to pursuing out-of-the-box innovative possibilities that stimulates people. So what people are working on is critically important. How they work on it, this is the classic case of how much management is enough, and this gets to the whole issue of trust in remote and hybrid work. But companies that are consistently innovative and have high levels of engagement also allow teams to largely self-organize. Schedules, internal team agreements, how they hold each other accountable. A company like Automatic, for example, the company behind WordPress. Employees basically hire and fire new staff. A new candidate comes in and does an audition for a couple of months, and then the team votes up or down. At Simco, people set each other's salaries through this radical transparency and team accountability. So Morningstar Tomatoes, the largest processor of tomatoes in the world, has no job titles, and organizations completely self-organizing. So that how people work. So that's one. The fourth is leadership, right? Does leadership trust its people and really cascade a growth mindset and tolerate risk? And so right now, the turnaround at Microsoft can largely be attributed to Satya Nadella's enthusiastic embrace of a growth mindset and tolerating risks. And he says, the 2 things that drive us are continuous learning and the willingness to experiment. And the cultural turnaround at Microsoft has led to this ginormous financial turnaround. Now it's the 3rd largest company in the world by market cap. And the 5th element is where people work. And this is where my model of culture really overlaps with the world of workplace, because rarely in standard corporate culture models do you have any consideration of the physical environment where people are working. But from a sort of materialist point of view, where you work is crucially important. It textures your everyday working, whether you're at the office, what colleagues you're with, what the environment's like, if you're at home. So the workplace becomes a lever of shaping culture as well. So really the 5 things are meant to be these tangible things: stories, experimentation, self-organization, growth mindset, and workplace. But I do think, to your point about remote, I do think that the organic bonds of culture do develop more easily face-to-face. So while I am an advocate of remote and hybrid work, I do think that some amount of face time can be very healthy for building trust. Not necessarily culture in the way a lot of CEOs talk about it, because you're right. If they cared about culture before, now they're using remote as all of a sudden they found the culture religions. Oh, we're going to lose our culture. That's a bit disingenuous.
As we've heard today, the future of leadership isn't about managing hours, people, or policies. It's about shaping environments where people can thrive. From Dale's push to redesign work around human needs, to Chris's call for deeper purpose and autonomy, to Drew's insights on cultural trust and experimentation. The real evolution in leadership isn't structural, it's relational. The question now isn't how do we lead better? It's how do we build systems that lead with us? Thanks for listening to this Expert Insights episode of the Future of Work podcast. If you found it insightful, share it with a colleague, leave us a review, or check out our show notes for links to each guest's full interview. Until next time, keep asking not just where we work, but how we work better together.
If it's impacting the future of work, it's in the Future of Work podcast by allwork.space.